Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to today's special Christmas Reflections Part 2. I don't normally do a video today after I moved to Sohbet to Monday, but there is something that I need to continue discussing after my previous Sohbet on Christmas and the Christmas reflections that I gave on Friday, where I went through the scriptural references for Christmas and gave some discussion about it. But today, someone sent me a video, a friend of mine, an Arab friend actually. I'm kind of surprised because usually I don't get this so much from Arab friends. But at the same time, I am aware there is a kind of thought that is spreading amongst a lot of Muslims. And it's become quite common where people, they look into conspiracy theories and they also look into this kind of anything that kind of undermines the religions. And they feel good about that, or they look into it from that perspective. And it makes them feel good that there's Muslims that they don't have that. Hello, nice to meet you. And so it's like, as Muslims, they feel good about it. And if they see other people celebrating Christmas, they think of these videos that they've watched and Muslim Brotherhood programming over the years. And they start to think that Christmas is something actually quite different to what Christians celebrate. And we will see this in the discussion that I'm going to have with you now. And I'm going to share the video that the brother had sent to me, because I think you should all see it. It's one of a number of kind of videos like this, which are circulating on the internet these days, in both conspiracy type circles and also some religious discussion circles. And it's not really saying anything different to many of the others. So I will share it so you can see what's being said in the video. And then we will discuss this, because this needs to be addressed. So for the benefit of everyone on Facebook, you're going to be able to see this video. Hopefully those on Instagram should be able to hear it. Although I'm sorry, I can't share the screen on Instagram in the same way. So let's share the screen. See if this works.
What would Jesus say about Christmas? Well, that's an excellent question. And I've got my own opinion on that. And I believe that Jesus would say, why are you guys celebrating my birthday when it's not my birthday? As we all know, Jesus was not born on December 25th. Well, why are we celebrating Jesus's birthday on a day that wasn't his birthday? Now, maybe your kids are small and you celebrate their birthday on a weekend because their birthday lands on a weekday, so you might move it a smidge, but nobody moves it months. And I think if Jesus saw everybody and told us exactly what he thought about celebrating his birthday on December 25th, he would say that you were all celebrating my birthday in honor of the sun god, Horus, where they used to sacrifice babies to please him. And if you really think, if December 25th was actually a day of sacrifice of babies, how many babies would they have had to please Horus? Well, quite a few, I would imagine. Well, how many months does it take a baby? Because people want to be prepared. They want to plan ahead. So that brings us back 9 months prior to Christmas, where Easter. We celebrate Easter for what? The resurrection. Coincidentally, Easter, which is also another god, Ishtar, the god of war and fertility, which is why there's rabbits and eggs, was actually a pagan holiday that was observed by basically having an orgy. So everybody got together on Easter, had a lot of sex. So 9 months later, there'd be a lot of babies. And coincidentally, when all those babies were born, old Horus was there December 25th, wanting you to slice them open. and sacrificed the babies to him. And then here we are, thousands of years later, celebrating baby Jesus's birthday on Christmas, when in reality on Christmas was a sacrificial day where millions of babies were slaughtered. And that is what I think he would think. How dare you?
Okay, so this is what a brother shared. He sent it to me, and he also shared it on his Instagram story. I'm not going to mention the brother's name because, quite frankly, it's not relevant, and I don't want to expose him or cause him any undue embarrassment. But let's be honest here. Do any Christians today sacrifice babies on Christmas? Do any? Christmas today is a day when Christians and other people in Northern European countries and North America, where Christmas is a national holiday, they celebrate Jesus's birth, they give presents, put up Christmas trees, decorations, spend time with families, and have meals together. And basically, that's it. There is no sacrificing babies on Christmas Day. Simple. If there is today, anybody doing that would be a criminal. They'd be arrested and put in prison. Totally unacceptable behavior. Nobody is going to do that today. So you think if a Muslim share a video like this and says, this is what Christmas is, and this is what Christians believe, imagine for a moment you were a Christian watching this. How offended would you feel? How offended? Now, I don't blame the brother who sent this to me or a number of others who do this, because sadly they have been conditioned by Muslim Brotherhood programming over the years. This is not what Islam teaches. Islam does not teach us to go around offending Christians. Islam does not teach us to be disrespectful to Christians or people of any other religion. Never has, never does. We got on record that when a delegation of Christians visited the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and it came to their day of prayer, so it must have been Sunday, and they wanted to go home because they say we have to pray tomorrow because it's our prayer day. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, no, you don't have to go yet, you can stay. Use the mosque. Use the mosque. What for? The Christians, were they going to do Muslim namaz? Were they going to do Muslim salah in that mosque? No. They were going to read mass. They were going to read a Christian service with crosses, with Christian prayers, with references to the Trinity. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ opened the mosque and said, you can pray here. This is the understanding of our beloved Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the best of mankind and the best of Muslims. So all of you who are out there, if you've ever said anything bad to a Christian, if you ever insulted a Christian about their beliefs or called them pagans or polytheists, just stop. Just stop. This is how our Prophet ﷺ behaved towards the Christians. He had intelligent discussions with them, and they agreed to disagree. And even after they agreed to disagree, the Prophet ﷺ still wrote letters to Christians and said, you are my citizens and you are my allies, and I hold out against anything which displeases you. And if you come under attack, it is a duty of the Muslims to defend and protect you. This is my Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ who sent letters to all those Christian communities in the Middle East. He declared them as allies and friends. He declared them as being under the protection of the Muslims. And this, incidentally, is why they had to pay jizya. Jizya was a similar amount to zakat, and it was simply to help pay for the costs that would be incurred in defense and security. Just like we pay tax today to whichever government of the country we live in. So, and it was less actually. I say just like we pay tax, but it was less than tax today that most people are paying as a percentage of income. So let's just stop with all these insults towards people of other faiths. Because sadly, a lot of the people who do this, they think they're giving dawah. Will you imagine for a moment that you are a Christian and someone has just called your treasured festival of Christmas? This, for most Christians, is a very special festival. I know not all Christians celebrate it. There are some very small groups like Jehovah's Witnesses that actually most Christians don't regard as Christians, and they don't celebrate Christmas. It is true. But the vast majority of Christians around the world, whether they are Catholics or Protestants or Orthodox, they celebrate Christmas. They don't all celebrate Christmas on the same day, but they celebrate Christmas. It, to them, is a treasured festival, celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ, peace be upon him. And it is a family time to spend giving gifts and stuff. So what if it is on the same day that, you know, going back thousands of years ago, some other religion might have done something else, whether they sacrifice babies or what? It's a different religion. It's a different belief. This is not the belief of Christians. This, you know, when Muslims say this about Christians, it is no better than Christians turning around and saying that we are all terrorists and we want to kill everybody and we want to dominate the world and subjugate everybody under Sharia rule, which they misunderstand as something different to what we understand. Let's lead by example and treat people with respect and decency. How can we expect anybody to respect us Muslims if we don't respect them? And not only that, this, when it comes to Christmas, Christmas is a national festival. So in countries like the United Kingdom, European countries, the American countries, Australia, New Zealand, Russia, Christmas is a national holiday. It's one of the few days a year that everybody except the emergency services are guaranteed to have as a day off. So pretty much everybody celebrates Christmas in one form or another, regardless of what faith they are. The people who are Christians, they go to church if they are very religious, and they do Christian service, and then they also will probably give presents and have a Christmas tree and stuff. The people who are not Christians will probably not do that. They will just, like me, put a Christmas tree up, give presents to my children, because I want them to be happy. I love my children. I want them to be happy. I don't want them to think that because they are Muslims, they are missing out on something that other children are getting. Within Islam, it is sunnah to give gifts. And even more sunnah to give gifts to your own children. So, and honestly, I've had people in the past tell me, oh, but you give gifts. You exchange gifts at Christmas. Yes. And some people think, some Muslims have said to me that that is something wrong. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave gifts and received gifts. It is therefore sunnah to give gifts at any time of the year, not only Christmas. So, you know, people, they don't think these things through. And I do lay the blame squarely at groups like the Muslim Brotherhood, who have been spreading misinformation for a very long time about Christmas, about Western culture, about a lot of things. And it is about time that we as Muslims stood up against this and said, enough. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ treated Christians with respect. He treated Jews with respect. He even treated pagans with respect, especially those pagans, you know, the mushriks, who they were not attacking the Muslims. Not all of the mushrikeen were enemies of the Muslims. There were some among the mushrikeen who they were neutral, they stood back. And many of them in time became Muslims themselves. When the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ spent time with these people, he treated them with respect and decency. He didn't treat them as enemies because he knew they were not enemies. Only those people who had bad intention in their heart towards him were enemies. Only those people, in due course, he took some actions to protect himself and the Muslim community from their devilish behavior. But if someone is not your open enemy and is not openly attacking you, you do not have to behave like that towards them. And it is not sunnah to do that. The sunnah in that case is to show respect and decency. And today, we are not, for most of the world is not under the category of Darul Harb. Darul Harb is the old category that Muslims used to say that, a house of war. At one time in the Middle Ages, Muslims categorized the world into two halves: Darul Salam, the house of peace, and Darul Harb, the house of war. And they said you either lived in Darul Salam or Darul Harb. Now, I will argue that this is not relevant today. This is not relevant today because today people live in countries based upon citizenship. And these countries, whether it is the United Kingdom or the United States or Indonesia or Malaysia or Australia, are multi-religious countries. They are not countries founded on the basis of religion. They are countries founded on the basis of citizenship and constitution. So the old category of Darul Harb and Darul Salam no longer is relevant. But even if we looked at the world under that category, most of the world is in Darul Salam. Most of the world is peaceful in the sense that you can go to a mosque, you can pray, you can buy your halal food, you can live your life, you can go to work, you can come home from work, and you are not in any undue danger for being a Muslim. Anywhere like that in the world is Darul Salam. Whether that country is run by Christians or Muslims or any people of any religion or belief, as long as you've got the freedom to practice your religion and you have laws that you can, if anything happens to you, you can actually go to the police, you can get a solicitor or a lawyer to defend your case and protect yourself. And actually, in this particular measure, a lot of countries that are not predominantly Muslim are better than Muslim countries and more based upon the principle of the rule of law, which is the whole purpose of Sharia, to establish the rule of law within society. A lot of countries like Britain and in European countries and America are better at this than many Muslim countries today. So, these old ways of looking at things are no longer relevant. And we can't look at everybody from a country, even if there was a war, like what happened in Afghanistan and Iraq, where you had a war between people from Britain and America and Iraqis, or from Britain, America and Afghans. Even in these situations, these are local wars, and they're not wars based upon religion. They were wars based upon national security, resources perhaps, and other regional geopolitics and things. They were not wars based upon religion. And there are Muslims serving in the British Army, there are Muslims serving in the United States Army, because Britain and America are not Christian countries anymore. They are multi-religious countries based upon the principle of citizenship. And within the coalitions that were going into places like Afghanistan and Iraq, they were actually like the Turks, for instance, who are Muslims. I think Malaysians at some point also supported. So we are not talking about, Muslim army fighting a Christian army based upon religion, which is what these old premises were based upon. So when groups like the Muslim Brotherhood and ISIS and Al-Qaeda are saying it's a war between Christians and Muslims, it's not. And it's not a global war either. These were localized conflicts. And whatever anybody thinks about these conflicts, and I know there's a lot of different perspectives on them, and a lot went wrong with these wars. And I'm not saying whether they were good or bad or anything like that. I'm not even discussing that. I'm just saying that they were localized conflicts. It wasn't a situation where the whole of the Muslim world was fighting the whole of the Christian world over a matter of religion. It was not the Crusades. So any arguments on that basis are null and void. But if we simply go back to the original discussion of the content in this video, the winter solstice is the shortest day of the year because it's to do with the orbit of the Earth around the sun. And so from one winter solstice to the next winter solstice is 1 year. It's one solar year. That's how we actually calculate the Western calendar. It's also how the Mayans calculated their solar calendar. And many other societies that have a solar calendar, that's how they calculate it. Because you can tell when the days get longer and the days get shorter. And this is very important for any farming civilization, because you need to be able to calculate the solar calendar in order to be able to plant your crops at the right time in the spring. Otherwise, you are not going to be able to grow your crops at the right time and get a harvest in the winter. Now, today, people who live in cities do not think about this. We just go to the supermarket and we buy our food from the supermarket, or we go to a restaurant and buy our food. But it is a fundamental basis of any society to have a stable food supply. And a stable food supply comes from being able to farm effectively. And in order to be able to do that, you need to know what date to be able to plant your crops and what date to be able to harvest your crops. And Easter, that was mentioned in this video that I just shared, was around that time in the spring when the weather is warming up, and almost every society in the world, whether it is the Chinese, whether it is the Jews, whether it is the Indians or the British or Europeans, so many different cultures around the world, whether it's Nowruz that the Persians and Kurdish celebrate, they all have a spring festival around that time when we celebrate Easter in the UK. Because that is the time when you will be planting your crops, when the lambs would be being born, in order that you can get a harvest. It is based upon the solar calendar and the solar year, and it has to be, because if it's not, then basically we won't have any food to eat. It is a simple basis of the societies in which we live. So as a result of this, you do find in many of these cultures and civilizations, within temperate regions especially, they will have a celebration in the spring, a spring festival, and they will also have an autumn festival when they harvest the crops. They will also have a shortest day festival, which is the solstice, which became Christmas when people here become Christians. And you'll also have a longest day festival, which is in the middle of July in the Northern Hemisphere, and actually would be around Christmas in the Southern Hemisphere. These dates are known within all of these civilizations, and historically in every civilization, whether it's the Native Americans or the Chinese or people from the Middle East or Europe, they would have festivals on these dates. Obviously, as people change from one religion to another religion, the festival that they held on that date would change. Maybe at one time, some ancient Egyptians did do a sacrifice of babies on that day. Oh, it's horrible to think about. Maybe they did. But certainly for the past nearly 2,000 years, people in Europe have not been doing that kind of festival. They've been celebrating the birth of Jesus. And alhamdulillah, thank you for that, because we don't want people sacrificing babies. It's an evil thing. And when it comes to Easter, it's a spring festival celebrating the planting of crops, celebrating life, celebrating Easter bunnies and eggs. I don't know anybody who has an orgy on Easter. I'm sure some people do, but I don't know anybody. So it's just, this is a nonsense that's being spread through the internet. It makes a popular video that goes viral and people start listening to this, but it's not reality. It may have been reality thousands of years ago in another place, in another time, in another civilization, but it is not reality here in England. It's not reality in the United States. So, you know, people need to be grounded. And, you know, when I pointed this out to the brother who sent this to me, he said, everything I said is nonsense. You claim you are Muslim, but are still living in your wonderland. For example, you named your children English names instead of Islamic, and you celebrate a day which is not the birthday of Isa. And he said, there is no Jesus. You live in wonderland. I gave a very eloquent response to the video, and that's the response that I got. It's very disappointing, to say the least. And actually, my children, I pointed out the names that my children have are not even English names. Sophia and Athena are Greek, which is the root of European civilization. Aisha, Zia, and Rashida are Arabic. Maria is Latin for Miriam and is obviously Latin. Tamina is Persian and Arabic. Only Elizabeth is an English name, and that's derived from Elishiba, which was the name of Nabi Yahya's mum, peace be upon them. And Elishiba means God is my oath, i.e. promised to Allah. So it's like, you know, people need to open their minds. I mean, you've got to accept there are different cultures and civilizations on this earth. And regardless of what belief a person has, they're still going to have their own culture. They're going to have their own language. They're going to have their own ways as well. I embraced Islam 21 years ago. I did not become an Arab. I've got nothing against the Arabs. I love the Arabs. They're my brothers in deen. And if they're not Muslims, they're my brothers in humanity. I've got nothing at all against the Arabs, but I'm not an Arab. When I embraced Islam, I became an English Muslim. I'm still culturally English, but I'm also a Muslim by faith. Just like if you go to the Middle East, there are people who are Arabs, who are culturally Arab, and they are religiously Christian. But they will still do a lot of Arab things because they are Arabs. There is nothing wrong with that. In fact, it would be very bizarre if suddenly, when I become a Muslim, I become an Arab in everything that I did. And the world would become a very boring place if everybody did that. I would have no uniqueness or culture, and I'd lose my roots. And that would be a bad thing. That would not be a good thing. Because people who lose their roots are easily swayed, are easily confused. This is not why I embraced Islam. The names that even if I gave, I told this brother, even if I gave my children 100% English names, then there would be nothing wrong with that within Islam. I could have called my daughters Faith and Charity. These are English names. Faith is the same meaning as Iman. Charity is the same meaning as Sadaqah. I could have given them names like this. They're beautiful names. They're actually Islamic names because of the meaning. Islam is not Arabic language. There are many people in this world. The vast majority of Muslims are not first language speakers of Arabic. They might speak Arabic as their second or third language, but their first language is Bahasa Indonesian, or Urdu, or Javanese, or Sundanese, or Somalian, or some other language. Vast majority of the Muslims on this earth, their first language is not Arabic, and their culture is not Arabic. So why should I, as an English Muslim, or someone who's an American Muslim, become culturally Arab when we become a Muslim? It doesn't make sense. What defines a Muslim is the belief, the Shahada. Ashhadu Allah ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu rasuluh. I declare that there is no God worthy of worship except the one true God, Allah. And Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. This is what defines a Muslim. If I said, Shemma Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, and believed Moses was my prophet, I would be a Jew. If I believed and declared the Apostles' Creed, which I've never done, I would be a Christian. But I didn't. I declared, Ashhadu Allah ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. My concept of God is pure Tawheed. I believe only in the oneness of God, and God is not like anything else that we can imagine, anything in the creation. God was never born. God never dies. God is the ever-living. God is everywhere in his knowledge. And behind everything is the presence of God. Just as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Ayatul Kursi. When I read Ayatul Kursi in the Quran, I said, that is my God. And I become a Muslim. No one should question my faith because I celebrate this or that cultural festival. And the same is true not just of me. I'm not saying this just for me, but for anybody who celebrates cultural festivals. Because there are so many cultural festivals in this earth. The Indonesians have a number of cultural festivals. In the Middle East, in spring, they celebrate Nowruz. Nowruz is their ancient Persian New Year festival. And that would have had religious connotations for people because Zoroastrians used to practice it. So why shouldn't I, who comes from a society that was traditionally Christian, celebrate Christmas and celebrate New Year and Easter in my own way, not exactly the same as every Christian does, but in my own way? If we said the people who celebrate cultural festivals, except for the two Eids within Islam, are not Muslims, basically nobody's a Muslim today. This is an absurd position to take. You can't do that. And I am following the fatwa issued by Al-Azhar. And these fatwa issued by Al-Azhar make very clear you can wish anybody a Merry Christmas or a Happy Diwali or blessings on any festival, and it is halal. And you can even take part in the activities that happen on those festivals, so long as those activities are themselves halal. And you are not doing anything wrong as a Muslim. These are the fatwa issued by Al-Azhar in Egypt, one of the foremost centers of Muslim learning in the world. So, people need to stop listening to the Muslim Brotherhood and these kind of bigoted ideas and realize that that is not the way of Islam. Islam is open, Islam is friendly, Islam is respectful towards everybody. And we should not be doing things which insult people of other religions. And if we discuss people's festivals, if we discuss the festivals of other religions or societies and cultures, we should learn about it first and make sure that what we are saying represents what they are doing. If you want to give dawah and teach your religion to other people, you have to understand where they are coming from. You have to understand what they already believe, what they care about, how they live. You have to understand this first. If you don't understand this, you are never going to be able to give an effective message to them. Instead, you will only put people off. Got a few messages coming in. Salam alaikum, Mohammed and Tawfiq. Very nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us today on Instagram. And I've got a couple of questions here. Brother Arifan asked me, how long is my journey until I converted to be a Muslim? Well, I embraced Islam 21 years ago. Actually, in March, it will be 22 years. And I was looking into different religions for about 2 or 3 years before that. So it took me a few years to embrace Islam because I wanted to understand first. It's very important you understand what you practice, what you believe. You don't just follow by rote. And Allah tells us this in the Quran because we're told that there were people who were just doing what their ancestors were doing without understanding. And they were just following that. In other words, you know, how they were like praying to the idols and worshipping the idols. And, you know, when prophets like Abraham and Moses and others came to them and told them what they were doing was wrong, they would just say, this is what their ancestors did. And they wouldn't even think about it. But actually, I mean, that applies to a lot of people today who are just doing stuff without even thinking about it. Allah tells us in the Quran that in this book are signs for people who use their reason. One of the things that appealed to me about the message of the Quran is it appealed to my reason. It didn't order me. Allah doesn't order me and tell me do this and do that. Allah appeals to me to think about things. Does this make sense? What are you doing? Surely in this, like talking about the water cycle, about the rain, and how the rain evaporates from the seas, goes and makes clouds, and then rains down upon the land and brings the earth to life. Surely in this are signs for people of understanding. It's a beautiful way of appealing to people, and it appeals to their minds as well as their hearts. And this is one of the things that makes Islam such a beautiful religion. But sadly, if you listen to the average Muslim today, you will not get that kind of educated discussion. Instead, you get some nonsense that they're just repeating parrot fashion, that they don't really understand, that they've heard from somewhere and they've not even thought about before they go and tell someone else. This is not learning. Learning is to be able to understand things. When you understand things, then you can explain things. Then you can invite. I can have this conversation with you now and do these presentations because I spent 21 years as a Muslim, altogether probably 22, 23 years, looking into different religions, trying to understand them, and thinking things through. And then I can process and I can discuss with you because I've done that. I've done the research. I'm still doing research. I think about things. I weigh things up. I don't just say what someone else said, because there's no benefit in that. Anybody can do that. Anybody can memorize something and repeat it. But this is not learning. Learning is when you understand. And when you understand, you can explain things in your own words. And you can break things down and make it easier for other people to understand. Brother, I can tell you about Muslim life in the UK, but it's kind of off topic today. So maybe that's a discussion for another time. So unless there are any questions on this subject, I think I will close this in a minute. But I hope that clarifies the position on this, because people need to be clear when they are discussing with people of other religions about their festivals and what they are actually celebrating today, not what some festival might be on the same date. I mean, the argument in that video I showed you earlier is no different to if Eid al-Fitr falls on Christmas Day and you celebrate Eid al-Fitr. Are you celebrating a baby sacrifice that happened on that day thousands of years ago, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 years ago? Of course not. You are celebrating Eid al-Fitr. In the same way, if a Christian today is celebrating Christmas, they are not celebrating whatever was happening 5,000 or 6,000 years ago in Egypt or wherever else. They are celebrating Christmas. And you know what that means to them, what they understand by that. We have to have respect, understanding for people. And if we want to guide people, we have to listen to them. Understand where they're coming from. Understand what they believe already. Don't just preach to them. So unless there are any other questions, I think I will close it there and wish you all very happy New Year, actually. It's going to be New Year in just over a day. So hopefully you'll join me tomorrow for my Friday reflections at the usual time, sometime in the evening. And I'll wish you all a happy New Year again. But let's have some good discussion. I will probably, maybe I'll read from one of Maulana Sheikh Nazim's Sohbets or something else, depending on what inspires me tomorrow. But I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And if I don't see you tomorrow, I wish you all a very happy New Year. May be blessed. And yes, it is a fatwa issued by the University of Al-Adab that we can give Christmas greetings, and we can also join Christmas celebrations as long as we're not joining in any actual haram activities. So e.g., don't eat pork, don't drink alcohol, don't do things which you know are haram. But if you're having a party and you're eating chicken or you're having a vegetarian meal and you're drinking orange juice and you're just doing normal things, that's fine. You know, there's nothing haram about that. There's nothing to stress about. Also, if you have your own halal meal at home with your family, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's just a meal at the end of the day. Somebody asked me, do Muslims take part in maintaining security at Christmas? Well, there are Muslims within the UK who work in the police forces, who work in various security companies. So obviously, if they are working in those jobs, they would be providing security at Christmas and protecting Christians. Also, there's a lot of Muslim taxi drivers in the UK. So they even take people home who might be Christians or maybe not religious, but they drink too much and get a bit drunk. And these Muslim taxi drivers take them home safely. And it's something that's often forgotten, but it is an important service that these people are doing within the community. Alhamdulillah. I pray the new year brings better things for us all as well. Let's pray that there is an end to this COVID and restrictions, and we can get back to life and building our communities and doing good things within society. Inshallah. Okay, I will close it there now. And if you find these broadcasts useful, and you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to my Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channels. I go live on Instagram and Facebook through Zoom. And on YouTube, I upload the videos afterwards. So there is actually a record of my videos over the past couple of years on my YouTube channel. And I also upload those to my website at paulsarmstrong.com. And on the desktop version of that, you will also see the links at the top of the page to my Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and other social media profiles. So until I see you next time, I wish you all the very best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May the peace and blessings of God be with you all.